So welcome to our bi-weekly meeting now. So there's not too much on the agenda for now. So first is the new concourse. So the story, let me share my screen. Oh, now it's reinstalled. Now I can't share the screen. Yeah. Fantastic. The story from our project, the story for the new concourse is now really in progress. Aftab and me are working to set up a new concourse for the release pipelines. So here in the chat, this is the storyboard. Chris has provided us a GCP account. Thanks for that. That worked like a charm. And now we have a new account or project where we can set up everything. So far, things run quite smoothly. Well, we are already hitting, hitting the first problems, and maybe we have to ask Ruben for assistance, but nevertheless, it's also a good practice for refreshing Kubernetes know-how, so it can't hurt. So this story is now really in progress. Any questions on that? Well, likely not.
No, I don't think so. Are we? I noticed in here it says to be determined domain name release integration. Are we keeping that?
Yeah. Okay. This is the best suggestion we've come up with.
Okay.
Release-integration.ci.cloudfoundry.org. Is that okay for everyone, or?
Yeah, I guess I was just a little surprised because I mean, like, release integration was the old CF team that I was on. I didn't know whether you wanted to name it after the working group or I already thought.
So this one is just named bosch.ci. Yeah, working group. I mean, as acronym we have ARD-working group-WG. Is it better?
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. It's just a question to a little bit, but yeah, that's fine. Whichever you feel is best. Bosch is Bosch is easy because it's like it's the project, it's the team, it's everything. So
it's everything. It's rather easy. Yeah. For us, we have a mix of application, runtime, deployment, release, integration. Yeah.
Right.
Pick one or two and assemble it to something.
That's fine. I wouldn't slow the process down for that. I think it's more important to get something up and running so we can actually start migrating pipelines.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just use this up runtime deployments. That's the short name of the working group.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have no strong opinion on that.
Do we have other concourse instances with good names?
I think we are setting up the second one.
Right. Second one, yeah. Sure.
Bosch was the first one, but there were no working groups back then.
Yeah. App runtime deployments.ci.cloudfoundry.org. I mean, okay, I can do a survey in our channel with a Poly, Slack, whatever, and then I mean, anyway, we will likely have to tear it down once more and then set it up again. But okay, let's make a small survey, and then if nothing better comes out, we keep this release integration. But I'm fine with anything.
Yeah,
good.
Sounds good.
Okay, fine. Now, maybe I prepared some time ago this Bionic update story. Actually, the plan was that we, so from SAP, are working on this Bionic release to get some practice in creating CF deployment releases. Now already, Dave, you've already done the work.
Yeah, there was, I mean, there was a bit more with this one than there would be with a normal release, just because it involved pipeline work. So Carson and I took care of that, but it would be good to start pairing with one of y'all to do releases. I know Carson mentioned it, I think, on the last one. The challenge is going to be the time zone overlap. Figuring out how we can coordinate that. We may have to say, okay, we'll actually schedule a time where say, okay, we're going to kind of release here, and maybe, you know, we have to figure out, okay, what features need to be there, which component bumps are we waiting for, if anything, or we're just going to take whatever's on release candidate and say, okay, we're cutting a release from that, make sure that's ready to release. But I think that would be better to actually schedule a time and say, okay, yeah, say Friday morning, or, well, that's hard because that's end of week for you. So I'm not sure Friday evening is great. We may have to circle around and say like Tuesday mornings or something, but it all depends on your availability.
Yeah, it's a bit challenging. I mean, Friday late evening is likely not a good option.
Right.
Yeah, if it's in Monday to Thursday late evening, could be okay. I don't know, in the morning is a bit, we would have to get up very early, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's morning for you, it'd be almost midnight for us here. So
yeah, okay.
I think your evening is more realistic.
No, okay, good. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, if you can send or proposal in our Slack channel when on which day you would want to have someone to pair, and we can try to arrange this. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And both Carson and I can cut releases, so it could be either one of us pairing with you. So yeah, I'll start a thread in. I'll start a conversation in Slack, and we'll figure out a date and go from there.
Yep. Okay. Good. Just post in the Slack channel, and then we try to arrange this. Okay.
Speaking of stem cells, I had a conversation with the infrastructure working group about the Jeremy stem cell work that they've just started on, and coordinating with them, because they were asking when CF deployment would switch to Jeremy. And I said that our policy has been not to switch it as the default stem cell until it has a 1.x release, because we want that guarantee of stability. They said that they were hoping to actually get validation in CF deployment before 1.x, so that they were still free to make breaking changes if needed. And so what I proposed was similar to what we had for Bionic, which is having an ops file in CF deployment that would allow them to deploy with whatever Jammy stem cell they'd uploaded to the director, instead of the default. So at the moment, only certain components work with Jammy. There's some components that they're still waiting on changes. So they're going to craft an ops file that specifically targets the instances that they know work. So we're just waiting on a PR from them for that.
Okay.
To put into CF deployment. I don't know if they want us to run anything in our CI, or whether they're going to run that in their CI for now, until they reach a certain level of stability, and then they can say, okay, yeah, you can start running this as a test pipeline with the full CF deployment. So
Okay,
just wait to hear what happens with that.
Okay. So the ops file will enable Jammy only for certain components, yeah? And
That's my understanding, yes, is that they like they said they were waiting on something for CredHub. And I think there's also a question of the compatibility with the rootfs that they're not sure if they need CF Linux FS4 or not.
Yeah, cloud controller won't work as well because we have not yet updated to Ruby 3.1. This is pending and will take also some time. So the 3.0 release just broke, and we have to start again.
Okay, so yeah, there are a few things that we're going to be waiting on. But yeah, it's just, I think they wanted something in CF deployment so that they could then work with that. I may suggest to them that if it's more in flux, they could maintain and keep the ops file themselves for now. And it's not in CF deployment until it has a certain level of stability and maturity, that it's not going to be them submitting a PR every week to change the instance groups that it applies to and that kind of thing. But we'll see what they say.
okay.
And the idea would be to have an additional pipeline than here on this concourse, or is Ruben planning to have one on their Bosch concourse instance?
I'm not sure yet. That's one of the questions I need to ask them.
Okay.
Because with Bionic, I had a pipeline here, but I could apply it to all the instance groups, and it was just a case of validating that everything worked, which by and large it did. So I don't know whether they, in the short term, are planning on having a pipeline here to test it while it's fairly unstable, or what they're thinking there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'll start up because they reached out to me through VMware channel, so I'll start up a conversation in their working group channel, and we'll go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Find that there is already some movement in the Jammy epic. Good. So let me quickly go back to the note. I wrote down here we're considering creating a maintenance branch for the Xennial stem cell. There is no such branch, right?
Correct. Generally speaking, we've never done maintenance branches.
Yeah.
We've just rolled forward to whatever the new versions are, and if someone needed to revert back to something older, they can craft their own ops files for that. That's the beauty of CF deployment. Anyone could craft an ops file to make any change they need to.
Yeah, true.
That's true.
Can solve any problem with ops files. Okay.
Yes. So I haven't really. No one's reached out and asked for that, and said, "Oh, we need to remain on Xenial." I mean, the last Xenial stem cell on Bosch IO is what, 18 months old now?
I would
something like that. It's not particularly recent. I'm sure it has several vulnerabilities that means that nobody should be using it anymore. So I don't see a particular benefit in providing that.
Well, if there is no demand, I mean,
yeah,
without a proper requirement, we don't need to create additional work. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good. Okay, fine. Then I would move this to done for now.
Yeah.
Okay. One small thing popped up this morning, someone wanted to know why there is no CF22 branch in the CF acceptance tests.
So
when do you usually create those branches?
So those get created automatically by the CATS pipeline.
The CATS pipeline, this is here.
Yeah. And the problem right now is that the CATS pipeline has not passed since, I believe the last one was CF19. We've had some issues. So the way this works, if you go back to the main pipeline view,
yes.
Every time a new CF deployment is released, it triggers all the way on the left there, and it will actually redeploy a long-lived environment with the new version. And then every time CATS runs on the right-hand side, the two boxes in parallel there, and it then triggers bless CATS. One of the things that does is it creates a branch of CF deployment with the version that environment is deployed with.
Okay.
And the last successful deployment, or the last successful run of CATS was against CF deployment 19. And so if you look in here, you should see that the branch that it created, well, this one doesn't get to run the run CATS. So we need to, there's a problem with what looks like an internal certificate. I think the dynamic ASG test has an application reaching out to Cloud Controller internally, and it's getting an error about the certificate that the internal Cloud Controller set that is being specified. So I'm not sure whether that just means that the app needs to be updated to ignore the validity of the cert, or whether there's something we can do. It seems hard to provide the CA used to create Cloud Controller's internal cert to the application, because that would mean I would have to go into the Diego Trust store, I think. And so I need to sit down and actually look at what the best way of solving this is. This is a new test that was added very recently by the runtime team for this new dynamic ASG feature. So I may reach out to them and say, hey, we're seeing this. I seem to remember their original PR had something where it was ignoring a certificate, and I asked them why that was there, and they took it out, saying, oh, it might have been something with our environments, but it might have been this. So I'll go back and look at the original PR and see if I can find that. That might be the fix that we need.
I wonder why they are using this internal domain for access.
Yeah, the test they chose to try and make a request to a 10.IP address, which was denied, and then they added the dynamic ASG, confirmed that it worked, then they removed it again and confirmed that it didn't work. And I think it was just the fact that they chose to use the internal address. They're like, okay, well, try and talk to Cloud Controller. Whether there's a better alternative, I'm not sure. I think the challenge is that by default, all traffic to the internet is allowed. And so they wanted something that would be denied by default that they could then allow in the test. And so they chose this.
Good. I mean, okay, but it's a clearly reproducible problem, yeah?
Right. Yes, it's failed on this the last few runs.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have an issue already for this? Or?
I don't believe there is one. No. I can create one.
If you have all the context, yeah, that would be very very kind if you create an issue and just paste it in the, and we can.
So I know we have the CF deployment project, but then we also have the working group project. And there's also, I would imagine, I think I created a CATS project when I was before the working group was formed. I think there's a repo specific project for cats as well. If you go over to the projects tab, I think
yes, here we also have
right,
more or less.
and this is just where I was maintaining PRs and issues.
Okay.
So I don't know if we're trying to centralize everything in the working group project, or if we still want these per
This
projects.
is still an open question.
I would maybe talk to Ruben about it. They tried a lot of things out, and if I remember correctly, they came up with one project per working group, and they have an automation where all the issues and PRs of all the different projects gets then aggregated, because that makes it easier to get an overview. And otherwise, you would need to look through 20. Okay, our working group here is pretty small, but the infrastructure working group or the interfaces working group, they have 50 plus projects, and then it doesn't work out anymore.
Yeah.
So maybe one central project. I think you have then to use this new beta feature so that you can aggregate of different projects. And
presumably that means if we're scheduling work, we should create issues on the appropriate project so that for them to show the appropriate repository, so they then show up here.
I think using issues to track tasks and stories is a good idea. I already tried this automation from Ruben with the beta projects, and I think I did not manage to aggregate all the single projects we have into one. I can try again, and we, as many already mentioned, the disadvantage is that you cannot create nodes here, so you have to use then issues and pull requests to track every piece of work.
Right.
It would be a good approach, and if the other working groups do the same, of course we would follow. But that's other topic. Okay, so thank you. If you create an issue for this blocked cats, then we can respond in the channel, and then this is done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I can respond to Andy once I've done that.
Yeah, perfect.
I'll also create an issue for the Jammy stem cell work in CF deployment, and just note that we're waiting on the PR from the infrastructure working group for that. If they decide they want to send it over to us.
Okay. Good, fine. Then we have only one last topic on the agenda. Downtimes on CF update. For the latest CF deployment releases, we noticed that there may be downtimes in CF push. So if you update to, what was it, 18, where the log cache is split from Doppler, there may be short downtimes because the stats endpoint is not reachable. We noticed this for our foundations at SAP because we're closely monitoring CF push. I've also seen a first issue from someone else that I think this is the same issue. They also noticed that stats server is temporarily unavailable while this update to CF deployment 18 is running. I don't know if you're not testing a CF push availability if you update from one version to another.
We are. We have a tool called Uptimer. So if you go back to the CF deployment pipeline.
Yes.
And if you go to upgrade deploy, which is in the so if you open up the task for Bosch deploy If you scroll down, it's all near the bottom. Bosh deploy, CF develop. Then if you scroll past all of the upload releases output, you'll see we have a tool here. Yeah, it's called Uptimer, and this basically tests app availability. So we push an app before the upgrade starts, and it gets polled consistently during the upgrade to make sure that the app is available. We have an app push test, and then we have streaming logs and recent logs tests. And we have different thresholds for how many failures we can see. And so if you go all the way to the bottom after the upgrade is finished, then interspersed in here, you will start to see failures. So like this is recent log failures. And then if you go all the way to the bottom, you'll see a summary of how many failures there were. So up a little bit, this is like the cleanup output. So there should be a table right here.
Here,
see that green section, it will tell you how many requests it made during the upgrade and how many failed. Now, in this case, I think this is a fairly small upgrade, but we could go back and find which, let me see if I can find it. It will be a ways back now, but I can try and find the upgrade for 18, and we can see what those numbers were like. Let's see, what do we have? That's 19. I'm assuming for
20.
When was 18 released? Do you happen to know?
Ooh. No, 19.
There's 18.
Still 19.
18 was released on the 25th of February.
Okay.
Okay.
Not too far.
Oh, I think this is the last one we have.
Okay, too
old.
old.
They're still there. It's just you have to manually edit the the number. So I'm getting there. 25th of Feb. So I've got to the 14th of Feb. Let's see if that's close. 15th of Feb.
Binary search.
23rd of Feb.
17.1.
I'm at 39.32 at the moment. And that's still 17.1. 25th of Feb. Okay, so 39.32 is the build we want. So if we look at that same section here, this was pretty much the entirety of, so that went from 17.1, which means that it was upgrading to what became 18. So if we go down and look at Bosh deploy, CF develop again, which was near the bottom, and just scroll all the way to the bottom. So we saw 0 app availability failures. We saw 1 push failure, but it only tried 14 times. So even then, it was a fairly quick upgrade for us, and that may be the problem. Is because this deployment is so small. The measurement is just not granular enough to see a significant number of failures. Even logging, we only saw one logging failure.
So Doppler, so it is.
How many API nodes are there?
Yeah.
Probably only one or whatever the default is in CF deployment. We don't scale these environments as well. Yeah, so it's very small.
Yeah, because when we tested it, I think we didn't really see it before, only when we had like 6+ API nodes, then we could see that issue.
Yeah, we don't have a any kind of significant scaling testing as part of the CF deployment pipeline at the moment. It wouldn't be difficult to add. We just need an ops file that scales to appropriate sizes, and we can test it. It's just never been, I guess it's just never been a priority for release integration.
Yeah.
Let's assume we would have found out here that we have problems with the log accessibility. Would that have then blocked the CF18 release? Okay. Yeah.
Right. If any of these metrics, so you can see on the right, it's got the pass percentages, and we then have, actually, I think the thresholds are based on number of failures rather than percentages. So it says like 1 failed out of 10. So if there were more than 10 push failures, then this job would go red, and it wouldn't allow the upgrade. And then we would go back to we'd look at, okay, well, what change came in that caused this? And in this case, we'd have gone back to the PR and said, oh, this is causing excessive amounts of downtime during the upgrade. How can we address this? But if the problem with this is if it's just slightly shy of the metric and it doesn't trigger it to go red, then we don't even realize that there is downtime. And so we don't see, like in this case, I think even if I'd looked at this, I would have not have said this was a problem, because I'm like, oh, 1 push failure. That could just be a flake, and it's not something we would have investigated.
We ran into the same trap with our standard tests, and but that's maybe something we could at least put on the task list to think about whether we want to have one test that runs on a, let's say, landscape that is scaled out. Don't know what that means for the costs, so we should have here then a temporary landscape that is not a long-living one.
Yeah, I mean, all of these environments, other than cats, are temporary. That's why it does the deploy the latest release and then deploy develop, and then tear everything down again. So, we could definitely do something, as long as we have a GCP project or AWS or wherever we choose to run it that has the capacity to spin up more VMs. You know, I don't think it would be hard to set up.
Yeah. I think that would help actually to prevent such issues. Yeah, at the end of the day, we are still digesting CF19, so we upgrade from 17 to 19, and there's the logging team is still trying to find a workaround to minimize, let's say, the effect on customers.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good, but it's good to know that this uptimer is already in place and nicely integrated.
Yep, I think we just need to have a foundation that's big enough that it will actually trigger a significant, a realistic number of failures, and then tweak the thresholds that we want to catch. And go from there. And it wouldn't be difficult to make it part of the gating process in this pipeline either, if we wanted to. We can either do it for information, or we can actually say, no, we can't release unless this scaling test actually passes.
Yeah, I mean, okay. CF deployment 18 was tricky. Yeah, if you introduce new VMs and move around jobs, this is always difficult. Okay. Yeah, good.
I have one more question topic. what we recently started to do is to run black duck scans on certain projects, and we have to evaluate them and then open bugs. And let's say for the smoke tests, the typical findings is your Golang version is slightly too old. And I think we had recently a conversation about that. And my question is now, is the patch version updated automatically for the smoke tests whenever it is released, or is that something we would have to trigger manually?
No, smoke tests would trigger. So smoke test is a much more automated process. Any change there would completely flow through and end up with a release being cut if everything goes green. So all that we need to worry about there is just merging PRs, and the changes will just flow directly through and cut a release at the end of it.
And the next release would then automatically include Golang 117.9, I think is the latest one, or at least that's one I have seen already. Or is it something I have to add manually here?
So there is a process here for the packages. It uses the Bosch vendor package process. So it's just a question of running Bosch vendor package for both Linux and Windows, and then committing that. I can write that up. I think it might already be written up somewhere in the. Is it in the README?
Updating blobs, update
There we
here.
go, updating the version.
Yeah, here it is, right. That's what, who worked on this story from us?
I think Sven worked on it.
Sven, yeah, right, yeah.
So I don't know whether there's a Go 118 or whether they're still on 117 in the Golang release repo, but yeah, that should be a case of whatever their latest version is, we can consume.
Would it be possible to automate that completely, that it, let's say, within the same minor version, so on 117 it would consume automatically all patch releases, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think it would just be a case of it needing the blob store credentials.
Mm-hmm.
I think, if memory serves. Does it need that? Yes, it must do. It must still be uploaded to the blob store. So yeah, as long as if we put those in CI, yeah, to grab the S3 key for the blobs bucket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we could add a GitHub action, for instance, that does it on a regular, I don't know,
definitely.
once per week or something like that. Okay, maybe that's another, a task to plan. I mean, it's not really urgent. We can do it also manually if we get the S3 key from somewhere, and then, but that will be something that comes up basically after every security scan, and you can do whatever you want. If you're not on the latest Golang version, the patch release, you have vulnerabilities inside.
Right.
And that's just a formal thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is a real issue, but updating is usually faster than trying to discuss those findings away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious now whether. Yeah, it looks like they have 118 available now. So we may actually be able to upgrade to 118.
Mm-hmm.
Which would be good.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, fine. Yeah, so that would be everything on the agenda for now. Stefan, you have more
No.
questions?
Everything.
Anyone else? Questions, suggestions?
Oh, I think I'm good.
If there is nothing else, I will compile meeting notes, but tomorrow. And yeah, the next meeting, we have a public holiday in Germany. So we could prepone it to the 25th. Would that be okay for everyone? Yeah. Okay, then I will. Then I will shift this next meeting, or we'll prepone it one day. And I think there are a few more holidays upcoming.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If there is nothing else.
Sounds good. Thank you.
We can close the meeting. Thanks, Dave, for your explanations and your patience.
Yep, not a problem. Happy to help.
Then see you all soon in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.